Hello everyone, Carlos Flores, Bag of Basics. Um, Before we begin the video, don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. Also, don't forget to hit the notification button so that way you can get notifications when new videos are uploaded. I'm pretty much uploading a video per day, and I have different topics that I have mapped out so that way I can go over. And it's, again, in the last video, I went over the different types of videos that I'll be doing. So one of the videos that I wanted to make is something that I originally wrote as a story, and I actually share with my Psychology 110 classes, and that's the story of how the last the last episode or the last time that when my parents decided that we were coming to the United States from El Salvador. So this was in the war, in the 80s Civil War. I was sitting with my grandfather. We were watching a soccer game. My dad and his best friend were actually in one of the teams that was playing soccer that day. And so all of a sudden, I looked to my left, right? I looked to my left, and I saw soldiers getting out of a bus and a truck. And I said, "Look, grandfather, look, the soldiers are coming." And my grandfather looked over and realized that it wasn't the soldiers; it was actually the rebels. And so he said, "Get yourself down this, get out of this soccer field and go straight to your aunt's house," which was right across the street. And so I didn't even hesitate. I listened to my grandfather. My grandfather is very wise. And so I started running down the hill and went straight to my aunt's house. When I got there, my aunt was actually looking and waiting for me and my family. Because remember, my grandfather was there. There were some other family members that were there. My dad was actually playing in the soccer match that was going on. And so as I got to the door, and my aunt came out to bring me in, two women actually put their rifles right up on her stomach and said, "We're taking him with us." And the thing is, that piece of that story actually came out later when I was asking my aunt about what happened that time, and she actually said that she remembered those two ladies putting their rifles on her stomach and saying, "We're taking him with us." For some reason, my aunt said, "No, you're already taking his dad. You're taking his grandfather. You're going to end up taking 3 generations right now. Why don't you just let me take him inside so that way he can stay here with us?" And so, again, whatever you want to call it, karma, divine power, good luck and everything, they put their guns down, and then they let me go inside with my aunt. It's vivid. This is one of the things that I usually talk to my Psychology 110 class, saying that this is how people form PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so the thing is, I can remember that I was wearing a Smurf shirt, and I believe it was blue Smurf shirt. For those of you that know Smurfs, those are the ones with the little hat, and white hat, and then the main guy was the one with the red hat and a beard. So Papa Smurf. So anyways, I remember that. I remember going in to my aunt's house. I remember staying in there for the longest time until my mom came to pick me up, and she was actually very very anxious and sad at the same time, because they took my grandpa and they took my dad. they took all the people into the hills. They actually kidnapped them because they were gonna force them to become soldiers, uh, rebel side. And so they actually stopped at a cemetery that's right next to the soccer field. And by luck, they actually let all of the elderly males and females go. And so one of them was my grandfather. Um, and so he came back after maybe about an hour. Uh, and so the only one that got taken into the hills was actually my dad and his friends and the younger crowd. And some of the kids were actually taken into the hills as well. It was sad. It was sad. I mean, I spent the whole evening crying. I spent the whole evening just asking for my dad. Actually not remember, but at that time I was, I was right around 8 years old. War had been going on. Different aspects of the war have actually affected me a certain way. I had experiences with you know family members and close relatives and people that we knew getting killed, buses being burned, people getting robbed, people getting kidnapped. I mean, it was not a conducive environment for anybody to be in. And I know that some of you can relate with this because you have been in those situations. And so, just be aware that PTSD is not it's something that may be very mild or may be very extreme. And so it depends on the event. It depends on the emotions that you connect with the event. It also depends on how you're able to cope with it. Thank goodness I'm able to cope with it a lot better. I'm super hyper vigilant. So I'm always watching where I'm at. I'm always watching my surroundings. And for the longest time, I didn't trust people. Because again, I just didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want things to happen the way that they did in El Salvador during the Civil War. And so, I was dealing with different aspects. And so the next morning, as my mom and I and my aunt and my grandfather, my family, we were all together. We actually heard that my dad and his friend and a couple of other friends actually escaped that night from from the hills. One thing about my dad, I mean, he grew up poor, and so the hills were his playground with his friends. They knew those hills back and forth. If I would have gone there, I would have gotten lost. Because, I mean, I did walk with my grandfather, but again, it wasn't as extensive as my dad. When he was either working in those hills, or he was playing in those hills, or he was just, hanging out with his friends in those hills. And so, they escaped. They came back to town. As soon as word started spreading around, uh, there were threats to my dad and his friends that they were going to get killed. And so because of that, we weren't able to have a peaceful life. I mean, the news came and they interviewed my dad and they interviewed the other men that escaped. And so the thing is that at some point, my family and I decided that my dad was going to come to the United States first. I remember in the last video that I talked about my dad coming to the United States a year earlier than us, and then a year earlier, before the year earlier than us. Then afterwards, he worked and saved the money so that we can come and meet with him, and that was my mom, my younger brother, and I. And so this was a very traumatic event. This was the event that made us move from El Salvador to the United States. And one of the reasons was because my dad got kidnapped. I mean, the other reason was because they were actually kidnapping kids and they were forcing them to be soldiers. I was right around 8.5, and they were taking kids that were 8 years old and they were starting to train them to be soldiers. And so, yeah, my family said no. We're moving. We're going to the United States, and we're starting our life over. And so we came here. Again, look at my past videos. I mean, we got here to the United States. We lived maybe a couple of years in Daly City. Then we moved to San Francisco. Then we ended up buying a home in Richmond. And then after that, I came to UC Davis for my undergrad. And I stayed in Davis, and I've been in Davis. My wife and I and our kids are here. Family are close now. My brother's down in LA with his wife, but other than that, everybody else is fairly close. And so, but that event where my dad got kidnapped, and my father and my grandfather did as well, but not as long. It just really solidified in me that mental health is very important, even at a young age, because sometimes events imprint, right, a memory in within you, and then at the same time, if you're not careful, then those memories will have an attached emotion to it. And so, whenever you're grieving for somebody, you start crying, right? It's because you have an attachment to that person, or you feel bad that they passed on or they got sick or something like that. And so just remember that whenever you have a traumatic event, or whenever you have not an impactful event, make sure that you talk to somebody. Make sure that you process it, because the more you process, the more you talk, the more you'll be able to detach those emotions from it, because you will always remember the events, right? Like I'm remembering the events, but the emotions are not as strong as they were originally, because I've been talking about it, I've been writing about it, I've been sharing it with different people. And so I want to make sure that you understand that mental health is very important. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in Back on Basics, because mental health is key to a lot of things, right? It's keeping yourself balanced. It's making sure that you deal with the things that are in front of you that are creating mental health issues, that are making you anxious, that are making you depressed. And so I want to make sure that you understand from my perspective and with my examples that you can get to a point where you can still remember those stories or those situations, but at the same time you won't be able to have those deep emotions that you used to. So again, learn from me. That's the best thing that I can do. I have loved to share videos about my life, about the things that I've done, the things that I continue to do. So until next time, Back on Basics, hit the like button, hit the notification button, subscribe to the Back on Basics channel, and until next time.